skeletons of 11 women and an unborn child was found in the deserts of Albuquerque's West Mesa. All these women vanished between 2001 and 2005, but no one connected the disappearances until the bones were found in 2009. Could a single man really have abducted and murdered 11 women without being caught? What if the killer didn't stop? What if he simply moved on? The West Mesa Bone Collector remains an unsolved mystery of serial killings, even after 16 years. So, let's find out what actually happened. This is Nocturnal Cases, Crime Unfiltered. On February 2nd, 2009, Christine Ross walked her dog across a barren stretch of Albuquerque's West Mesa. But that morning, her dog, Ruka, began pawing at something protruding from the soil. Christine bent down and uncovered a bone. Not from an animal, but unmistakably human. It was a femur. Initially, authorities speculated that it might belong to an ancient burial, perhaps Native American, lost in the layers of history buried beneath the New Mexico sand. But forensic analysis revealed it was recent, belonging not to a long-dead ancestor, but to a woman who had died within the last few years. That discovery triggered an excavation effort that would uncover one of the most horrifying mass graves in American history. As investigators dug through the sun-baked soil, more skeletons were found. When the work paused, they had unearthed the skeletal remains of 11 women and an unborn child. Their bodies had been scattered across 100 acres, buried shallowly, as if they were trash. No personal belongings, no clothing, no markers, just silence. The site wasn't a crime scene. It was a mass graveyard. The victims weren't tourists. They weren't high-profile disappearances that triggered national alerts. They were primarily young Hispanic women, many living on the margins, entangled in poverty, addiction, or sex work. They belonged to a demographic that society often ignores. When these women vanished, few noticed. Fewer still asked questions. Some were reported missing by family, others simply faded without a trace. The youngest, Jamie Barella, was only 15. The oldest, Cinnamon Elks, was 32. They vanished between 2001 and 2005, but no one connected the disappearances until the ground gave up its secrets in 2009. In the years they were missing, few headlines were printed. No task forces formed. For the killer, this was the perfect cover. A society that didn't value the lives of the vulnerable, one that wouldn't notice when they disappeared. With the discovery, the Albuquerque Police Department launched one of the largest investigations in city history. Yet from the outset, they faced a brutal reality. The bodies had been exposed to the desert elements for years. DNA degraded. Physical evidence vanished. The killer, or killers, had bought time through neglect and entropy. One early suspect emerged quickly. Lorenzo Montoya lived just a few miles from the burial site. He had a long, violent history with sex workers. His record included multiple arrests for assaults, threats, and kidnappings. In 2006, just a year after the last known disappearance, police found him in the act of disposing of a teenage girl's body after strangling her inside his trailer. But before authorities could arrest him, the girl's boyfriend intervened and shot Montoya dead. After Montoya's death, the disappearances mysteriously stopped. Police couldn't ignore the coincidence, but they also couldn't confirm it was causation. Montoya died before they could question him. If he was the killer, he took the truth to his grave. But Montoya wasn't the only suspect. Next came Joseph Blee, a convicted serial rapist known as the mid-school rapist. His attacks had terrorized Albuquerque in the 1980s. When investigators searched his home, they found a disturbing cache of women's underwear, jewelry, and photographs, none of which belonged to anyone in his family. DNA evidence connected him to the scenes of several sex worker murders. His home, like Montoya's, was located disturbingly close to the West Mesa site. Yet, despite the proximity and despite his record, Blee has never been charged in connection with the West Mesa victims. The evidence for now remains circumstantial. Then there was Fred Reynolds, a local pimp who personally knew several of the victims. Investigators believed he might have been the link between the women and whoever had killed them. But before they could bring him in for questioning, Reynolds died of natural causes. Once again, a lead vanished. With each passing year, more questions emerged. Could a single man really have abducted and murdered 11 women without attracting attention? Or was this the work of multiple individuals, possibly operating in tandem or even as part of an organized ring? The burial patterns offered no clear answers. The bodies were dumped haphazardly, with no discernible order or respect. The killer didn't try to hide them well. He simply relied on time, distance, and the indifference of a growing city. Some experts suggested the killer might have had specialized knowledge. Perhaps he worked in law enforcement or construction, someone familiar with how long it takes for authorities to notice changes in terrain. Others proposed a more disturbing theory. The killer had help. Because how else could 11 women be taken, killed, and buried in one area over several years, and no one saw a thing? The desert itself played a cruel role in concealing the crime. In the early 2000s, West Mesa had become the focus of a housing boom. Bulldozers and cement mixers roared through the land, paving roads, laying foundations. Shopping centers were being planned just miles from the burial site. Had the 2008 financial crash not halted construction, the remains might have been buried forever beneath a subdivision. The killer gambled on that. In response to public outcry, the Albuquerque Police Department assembled a dedicated task force. They cross-referenced over 21,000 phone records, re-interviewed witnesses, and used satellite imagery to analyze subtle soil disturbances. Anything that could offer a lead. Cadaver dogs swept other possible sites, and the FBI got involved. A $100,000 reward was posted, but despite thousands of hours, the case remains open. No indictments, no trial, and no closure. Memorials were built at the site. Streets were renamed to honor the victims. Their families still hold vigils, but these gestures, however sincere, cannot replace justice. The desert remains quiet now, but not peaceful. The silence holds too many names, too many secrets. 11 women, 1 unborn child, forgotten by the system that should have protected them. The most chilling possibility haunts investigators still. What if the killer didn't stop? What if Montoya, Belia, or Reynolds wasn't the one? What if the person responsible simply left, moved to another city, another stretch of desert, another community too distracted to care? We like to believe that serial killers eventually get caught. The West Mesa Bone Collector, as the media came to call him, remains a ghost. He remains free because the system failed, not just in investigation, but in recognition. Society failed to protect these women long before they were killed. The disappearance of marginalized women is too often treated as an inconvenience, not a crisis. Their lives weren't headlines. They were just statistics until the soil gave them back. Today, the land lies dormant. The winds still blow across the mesa. For every woman buried beneath that dirt, a family was broken. A mother waited by the phone. A sister lit a candle. A friend made missing posters. And yet, for over a decade, justice has not knocked on a single door. The story of the West Mesa Bone Collector will remain one of America's most haunting unsolved crimes, not just because of what was done, but because of what was ignored. If stories like this matter to you, the ones the world forgets, hit like. And if you want to keep uncovering the truths buried in silence, subscribe. There are still more cases to explore in this world.